What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, let's talk about the market right now. So, as far as Tesla's going, as you guys could tell, Tesla's on a much larger downtrend so far. But notice this lower trend line. We touched this back in early January. We saw Tesla bounce a little bit. And then right here, we saw the same thing going on in mid-February. We saw Tesla hit this trend line and we saw a nice bounce here. Now we're testing the trend line again. So there's a chance we get a temporary balance with Nvidia's earnings. But let me just make it very clear. I'm still bearish on Tesla. If you look at the overall trend, we're bearish. And yes, we are going to most likely eventually come down to that 275 and eventually 250 area to fill the gap. However, as of right now, before that happens, before we end up dumping harder, there's a very good chance we get some kind of rebound with Nvidia's earnings. I do lean a little bit more in favor of that as we're at this trend line and we're testing the daily 200 EMA. So I'll talk more about the charts in just a couple of minutes. Let's just talk about a couple of pieces of news. There were some analysts saying it's time to pull the plug on Tesla because of the fact that they're expecting their delivery numbers to be relatively weak. And there's been a lot of talk about how Tesla might be coming short when it comes to their overall targets for their full year deliveries. So there's been a lot of backlash coming to Tesla, especially considering the fact that we saw their Chinese sales down 33% and we saw the European sales down 45%. We're seeing their sales down all over the world, and Elon Musk's politics is just not really helping. There's a lot of negative news associated with that. Hopefully, Tesla can offset this with, like I said before, we have the Model Y refresh coming out. And as time goes on with interest rates dipping, that could also help Tesla. I do want to mention that global sales data are not due in April, but there are analysts that are predicting that we're going to be looking for one of the worst performances that we've had since the third quarter of 2022. They're expecting very weak deliveries for Tesla. We'll see how that goes. There's a lot of talk about the European sales being very, very lackluster. That's part of why Tesla dipped the way it did. But there are other pieces of news that could affect us. Just know that today for economic data, there's not really much coming out. Very, very minor mortgage data and the new home sales at 10 a.m. Everything is quite minor, but the knight in shining armor that we're waiting for is going to be Nvidia. Nvidia is going to be very, very important for this market. Like I said in my previous video, 4 out of the last 4 times they announced earnings, we saw the share price go up for Nvidia. And then they typically do very, very well. They like to wow investors, so I really hope that's the case. We have some analysts such as like Bob Sloan who are saying that Nvidia is set to pop after earnings come out. So we'll see about that. But I'm seeing a lot of very, very positive sentiment for it. And I went over all the details in my video from yesterday, so I'd recommend watching that if you want more details about Nvidia. Their growth has been very, very strong, but they have to give us more insights about how they're going to offset challenges from this year. So we'll see about that. The market is extremely fearful. People are expecting a big crash. When fear is at its peak, right, this is typically when you should start turning a bit more bullish, at least just temporarily. And then besides that, Nvidia is on deck to report its fourth quarter earnings. Don't forget that they have very high expectations, at least from Wall Street. I'm going to be looking to see what happens with their overall changes. With their Blackwell program coming out, I think it's going to be very, very huge for them. Consumer confidence is relatively weak, so Nvidia has to offset that and let us know how they're going to do well despite that. So that's what I'm seeing on the news so far. It's all about Nvidia. So as far as Tesla goes, we might do a little shuffling here. We could even see this thing retest the low 300s for some time. And whether we get the big bounce or not is going to depend on the overall market and Nvidia. So for now, I think Tesla could be a little lackluster, especially after being down 8% yesterday. We might see a move like this where we just shuffle a bit here. We try to base at this trend line, and then we'll see if we bounce thanks to Nvidia or not. If we manage to get back above our resistance right here in this 310 area, I think we could be trying to make an attempt for 320. And if we end up losing 300, we're looking for a move back down to like 297 or below. Like I said before, I do expect us to do a little shuffling. We kind of push upon open like we typically do, maybe into like the 310 area, dip again, shuffle, and then we'll see a big reaction possibly after Nvidia's earnings. Nothing is guaranteed. It is possible we just get a rug pull and we end up losing 296 and we just continue to dump to like the 280s. It's also possible we bounce off this trend line and we try to make a little rebound move before we see more downside later. Looking at the chart, it does favor some kind of upside move a little bit more, just temporarily, to get back towards the 320s. So for now, I do think we're going to shuffle here and we're going to wait for Nvidia's earnings. That's the main thing for Tesla. What's good about Nvidia is the fact that, like I said before, historically we tend to do well during earnings, and the setup is looking a little more bullish. Left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder. I've been talking about this for quite some time. And if we could get back above, 133 after earnings, I think we easily push for the 140s and 150s. There's a gap down here, so maybe we come down just a bit to like 128, consolidate a little bit, not really do a whole lot, and then a big move comes once earnings is out. Watch, as long as we don't lose 126, we're going to be fine. If we break 133, we're more bullish. My prediction is we dip a bit, consolidate, and we'll see a big bounce possibly after earnings. Now, notice on SPY and the QQQ, we have this falling wedge. We're starting to break out of it. I do want to see a little back test here, a little bit of a dip. That would be completely healthy. A small dip, as long as we don't end up losing like 590, we could dip a little bit and then eventually try to break out like this. That's what could be coming, at least for now. If we get a good earnings report from Nvidia, if we dip and we end up losing 589, in that case, then if Nvidia does poorly, we're looking for that gap fill all the way back down to 585. But I'm leaning a little bit more in favor of this. Maybe a little dip when we open to fill this gap to like 595 and some consolidation. Then maybe we should be looking for an accumulation. If we can make a higher low compared to this low, then yes, I'm looking for some kind of like bounce attempt. But I'm seeing the same thing on the QQQ. Although we're on a bit of a downtrend here, it's very possible that we see some kind of like dip, a retest of this support. And then we could be looking for a rebound after that. There's a very, very good chance that could be what's about to happen. Same thing with the Russell. We love to base around 214. We could get a retest of the 215s before it tries to bounce like that. That's very possible as well. If we lose 214, I will turn a bit more, I'll be a lot more concerned, but we'll see about that. Notice that we have tough resistance on ES at 6,000. Might dip a little bit here, consolidate for some time, and then we'll see if we get some kind of big bounce or not. As long as we don't end up losing the 5,900 area, as long as we make a higher low, this could be getting ready for a little temporary rebound move. That's what the wedge is suggesting. Same thing with NQ. As long as you don't lose 21,000, we could dip to the 21,100 before it tries to bounce. That's also like a possibility. Bitcoin's looking weak. Going to be looking to see if it could hold 85,000 or not. For now, it still looks a little bit lackluster. Aapl, we could be dipping a little bit more and consolidating around this area. I do see an imbalance near 244, so we might dip a little bit more before this thing tries to bounce, but the setup remains bullish as we've been consistently making higher lows with the inverse head and shoulders. May dip here before it tries to bounce. Overall, it's doing a great job. Coin is looking decent. I do want to mention that we might dip a little bit more with Bitcoin back below like, or very close to like 210 or so before it tries a rebound. So watch for that. Amazon's attempting a rebound. We're going to be looking for a test of 215. 215 is a very, very tough resistance, very, very key level. If we break that, I think we return to 217, then 220, but look at 215, see what kind of reaction we get. Meta's looking bullish as long as we're above 657. We're looking for an attempt for essentially 674. So I'd like to see us, try to hold up as long as you don't lose 657. Microsoft's on a bit of a downtrend here. I'd like to see us break out, though. If we could get back above 402, that's going to be a good sign. I think we maintain this wedge for a little bit longer. We consolidate a bit. We're not ready for a big move until Nvidia's earnings. Same thing with Google, a little bit lackluster. We could return to like 177 to 175 before it bounces. So we're waiting to see. But here's the thing about the VIX. The VIX, the last couple of months, ever since the year started, we had 22 rejects, 22 rejects, 20 reject. We just hit 21.5. Are we going to continue to rally, or are we about to see a big rejection like these last times? It might be doing that. It looks a little bit weak now. So if the VIX is about to get a big rejection, this could be a sign the market's about to bounce temporarily after Nvidia's earnings. So anything could happen, guys. I can't promise anything that Nvidia is going to launch Tesla in the markets. I can't promise that. You have to be prepared for anything, but just know that for now, there should be a lot of shuffling. Maybe even if the market dips a little bit and consolidates, it's going to be okay as long as we try to make a higher low compared to yesterday. And then we'll see what ends up happening. I do lean a bit more bullish. That's my bias, but I can be wrong. So manage risks, guys. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Hopefully, we do well and Tesla sees a bounce. So we'll see how it goes. I am optimistic. I thank you all for listening. Have a good one, and I'll be back in a couple of hours for another update. Thanks again for listening, and peace out.